So we're going live now. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Pedagogy Socratic Dialogue. Usually pedagogy is taught only to school teachers. It's considered to be something which only the education ecosystem has to worry about. But then if you're talking of self-learning, and if you're saying that the 21st century requires self-learning, and if you are your own teacher, shouldn't you be learning pedagogy? So we're having this Pedagogy Socratic Dialogue today for all the student unicorns of deep thought who are engaging in exciting projects on the data science, software development, copywriting, content writing, and various fronts. So we hope you'd enjoy this very interesting discussion on the art and science of teaching. So today we're going to have a very philosophical discussion on what is really learning, what is theory, what is practical, how do you blend that theory with practical, how do you enrich your worldview. I'm sure it will be a life-changing experience today. And on this note, I'd like to request my participants to go in with your introductions. Who would like to go in first?
I would like to go first.
Yeah, Nitin, please go ahead.
Hi guys, I'm Nitin. I'm a research and development fellow at TikTok and a visionary who loves transforming people.
Hello everyone, I'm Tushar and I'm a leader at Deep Thought and I'm helping people develop systems and processes that can help people become more behaviorally and intellectually competent. Glad to be here.
Hi everyone.
Yes.
Hi everyone. I'm Shagun from Deep Thought, a contributor in DT who is trying to incorporate emotions into technology.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, this is Raman and I'm a backend developer at Deep Thought who works on interesting projects.
Yeah. Thank you, Raman.
So this is Saurabh from Deep Thought. I'm a growth hacker from Deep Thought, and I'm figuring out new ways to bring growth to Deep Thought and to whole startup world.
Yeah. Thank you, Saurabh.
Hello everyone, I'm Fardeep and I'm a developer at Deep Thought and I'm developing tech to help people grow.
Okay. So before we go into the jury introductions, teams, would you want to explain why you chose this name?
Yeah. So we are Team Darwin. Like we picked that name specifically because like the thought leader Darwin himself changed the way we look at life in itself. Like he took us from theory of creation to theory of evolution, and the way we look at life, the way we look at plants, the way we look at the planet in itself was changed by just one theory. And so that tells us how powerful theories are. So that's the main reason that why we kept on Team Darwin. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Saurabh.
Yeah. So we took this name Wise Wanderers because the idea of learning journey is all about seeking wisdom of knowledge through the exploration. So we are wandering all around with wisdom.
Okay. Thank you. We'd love to have the jurors going in with your introductions. Mr. Shekhar or Mr. Ravi and Dr. Aryasri, one of you wants to go in first.
Sure. Thank you very much and very happy to meet you all. My name is Shekhar Dixit. I'm founder and CEO of Amelium. It's a social engagement platform for foodies and social butterflies. Imagine this to be like a TikTok dedicated for food and whole city becomes one community. And I'm an all-rounder. So pretty much I'm happy to be part of these exciting conversations and looking forward to listen to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shekhar. Welcome to the dialogue.
Hi, I'm Ravi Gajendrula. I'm a delivery manager in one of the oil and gas company. So yeah, I'm excited to meet you all and listen to you all. You seem excited and so I am. Okay. Looking forward.
Thank you, Mr. Ravi, and welcome to the program. Dr. Aryasri, if you could go in with your introduction.
Hi, my name is Aryasri. I retired as a director for School of Management Studies, JNTU, Hyderabad. I'm really keen to see how the young minds are thinking about their expression, their language, their delivery. I'm keen to spend a lot of time with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Aryasri. So now let's, the co-mods, if you can go in with your introductions, Umang and Dinesh.
Hello everyone, this is Umang, an education disruptor and the operations manager at Deep Talk. Today I would be the co-moderator for this dialogue.
Thank you, Umang.
Hi everyone, my name is Dinesh. I'm a growth hacker at Deep Thought, trying to help startups build great teams.
Okay, thank you, Dinesh. This is your moderator for the day, and I hope you enjoy the conversation today. So yeah, let's move in for question for discussion one. So today's first topic for discussion is theories. We would like you to come up with 5 different observations. We'd like you to come up with 5 different observations and give us a theory which you came up with basis these 5 observations. To theorize is very important. It's important for all humans to be able to theorize, and that's what the first topic is for today: the art of theorizing. So, which of the teams is going in? Please go ahead.
Yeah, we are going first with the pitch. Sakun, would you like to take over?
Team-wise wanderers, please go ahead. Here's your 1 minute for your pitch. Yeah.
Yeah. So, literary appreciation is very much important. So we observe that the people who are appreciated literary are great in cognitive abilities. So we observe about metacognition of the people, and we observed about receptive new experiences, how people are coming and contributing in terms of learning by sharing new perspective and analogies. So if you guys have some questions related to it, you can ask.
I'm not sure if I got your response. What are the 5 observations you picked, and what is that theory you came?
Okay. So do you want me to go with all 5 observations, because it will take a little bit extra time?
What is that theory that you've come up with?
Yeah, the position of literary appreciation skill makes one receptive to experience.
I'm not sure if I understand what you're saying.
Okay, sure, I can take over. So quickly, we made 5 observations. The first observation of ours was literary appreciation leads to making subtle inferences, and it enables you to exhibit better cognitive organization.
By literary appreciation?
Sorry?
What do you mean by literary appreciation?
Yeah, you being able to identify subtle points from the things that you read and being able to inherit different structures.
You're not clear. You being able to identify?
Being able to identify subtle points from the articulations that you read, and being able to extract complex structures out of them.
Why are you calling this literary appreciation?
Right, when you are able to appreciate the literature, you can find those nuances and that are hidden in those literatures, right?
What literature are you appreciating?
Sorry?
What literature are you appreciating?
Okay, by literature, we here mean the articulations that we read and stuff. So, for example, there's one, let's say Kabir's Doha, right? So in Kabir's Doha, there might be certain nuances that are hidden. So when we can appreciate those Dohas, we might be able to identify those nuances that are usually hidden and not visible.
Okay.
Right. So
what's your observation number 1?
Yeah, that was the observation number 1. Literary appreciation leads to making subtle inferences and enables you to exhibit better cognitive abilities.
Okay. And observation
right. Observation 2, intellectual stimulation sometimes leads to a mistaken belief of full comprehension of complex ideas, leading to a premature end to the exploration.
Sorry. You've lost me, you've lost the audience.
Right. Okay, do you want me to go over it again?
No, can you make it a little simpler for people to get it?
Yes. Okay, so when you are intellectually stimulated, right, when you feel good after learning, you usually miss out on a lot of learnings because you think that you have already learned a lot of stuff and you end the exploration early on.
Okay, brilliant, simpler, nice. Yeah, next one.
Right. Okay, being open to new experiences, ideas, and perspectives lead to a good and continuous learning. since you are being more open to learning, you can expose yourself to a lot more things.
Okay.
Right. The fourth observation is it is sometimes difficult to unlearn when you have those beliefs and perceptions held to you, which leads to more problems such as selective attention.
Okay.
Right. And the final observation is metacognition development. When you're able to think about your thoughts and stuff, you can come with proper learning strategies and have a proper learning journey for yourself.
Okay. So now what is the theory you've come up with the help of these 5 observations?
Yes. So possession of literary appreciation skills makes one receptive to new experiences, ideas, and perspective, allowing him or her to develop metacognition and construct and operate with sophisticated structures and become a skilled learner.
Can I get a simpler version, please?
Yes. Right. So when you can appreciate literature and you can find those subtle points, right? You can become more and more open to new experiences and ideas. And when you are being open to those, you get to think more about them. And when you're thinking more, when you're thinking about your thoughts, you develop metacognition, and it allows you to operate with certain structures, and you can come with your own structures then, which can help you operate better in whatever you do.
Okay. So how is this? So you were supposed to pick observations and theorize from those observations. So how is this theory developed from the observations?
Right. So we made those 5 observations, right? So we tried to explain those observations, like why those literary appreciation leads to those, like being able to,
What does literary appreciation have to do with intellectual stimulation? I mean, if you're feeling intellectually stimulated, you may lose a few things. How is your theory even connected to this observation? You left out this observation, no?
Right. Okay, we have not, exactly put, because we have tried to generalize the thing, right? So what we did was,
I feel you've not generalized. I feel you've just combined.
Yeah.
Because they were not really observations. You picked up theories as your observations and you got into trouble due to that.
Okay.
And I hope you'll get into more trouble, and I hope Team Darwin can put you in more trouble. Over to you, question box.
Yeah. So my first question was that only like the 5th observation that you mentioned, like individuals who develop metacognition can form better learning journeys. So isn't that a theory in itself? How are you considering it as observation? There are 2 different like strands that I can see, 2 different strands.
Right. But okay, here the observation point was, we observed that, some people who are thinking a lot, right, who think about their thoughts and stuff, who introspect a lot, they tend to have that organized, structured thoughts. They tend to understand frameworks. They tend to understand systems better. So that was the observation of ours.
But isn't that a theory that you are mentioning, that okay, you saw one person doing, like, let's say here point A, and the person is also able to do point B. So you come with that, okay, the person is able to do point B because of point A. So isn't that a theory in itself? How are you sure that the person is able to do with because of A only? What if the person also has a good mentor?
I'm sorry, can you please elaborate on your point? I did not get you.
Like this, like how are you like saying that point B, the person is able to achieve point B, which is like a journey here, a learning journey, because of point A only? That's a theory that you are building, right? The person is doing it because of point A only. What if the person has a mentor? Then there's no relation can be possible, right? So how is that not a theory but observation?
Right. Theories usually have a lot of things tested upon, and then they're called theories, right? You have a lot of explanation, observations. You try to explain those observations. You test those things that you come up with, and then you design the theory, right?
So then the observation, if it is not tested, and how are you saying it is an observation if it is not tested? Like it may not be true, right? How can you, like, if it is not a true in itself, how can you building another theory on the earlier one?
Right, but that observation was something that we observed.
Yeah.
My question is that only, like, how are you sure that point A is leading to point B? How are you sure?
Wait, I'm not sorry. I'm not sure if I'm getting your question. What's your question?
Yeah. So my question is.
Hold on a sec. Saurabh, what was your question?
Yeah. So there are two strands. If the person has metacognition, good metacognition, point A, they can have a better learning journey. Is point B. How are so? Isn't that a theory? If they're saying point A is leading to point B, isn't that a theory itself?
Okay, wait. Yeah. So Saurabh, let's take it one step at a time. Is it a theory or is it not a theory? Just answer with a yes or a no. Team Wanderers.
So I would say it's an observation.
Yes or no, please. Is it an observation or is it not an observation?
Observation.
Is it a theory or not a theory? Yes or no?
Okay, we would say no.
Okay, back to you, Saurabh. They say it's not.
Okay, then how are you sure that point A is leading to point B? How are you sure?
You're saying it's an observation and not a theory, which means you've observed that, your appreciation is leading to metacognition. How have you observed?
Okay. The individuals who develop that metacognition, that allows them to self-monitor.
Is asking how are you sure that it's an observation?
Okay, we are sure that it's an observation because we have noticed it in people, right? So,
metacognition.
Sorry?
Do you notice metacognition or do you argue that it is metacognition?
Okay, right. We are arguing that it's metacognition.
That is theory, no? It is not, observation. No? That's what Saurav's argument is.
Yeah.
Saurav, back to you. So they agree that they picked theories.
Okay.
Okay, if I can add one more point.
So,
we have just generalized this thing by saying metacognition, but earlier, as we said, right, there are certain things involved, such as you let's say that you are developing your own learning strategies, right? So how are you developing your learning strategies? You're thinking about the learnings that you're already having and then coming up with better strategies, right? So we have combined all of this and said that it's metacognition. But if you try to deduce it, then we'll say that, if you're being able to have better learning strategies, if you're introspecting, if you're reflecting, then you will have a successful learning.
Sorry, words are being used loosely here. What do you mean by deduce it?
Okay. Okay. When I said deduction, right? So, okay, I think, yeah, deduction, the word was used in not correctly, but I said, okay, I meant that we have metacognition, right? And we used that to generalize the other stuff, such as learning strategies and stuff.
So the point you're making is if they have, like let's say they have their self-learning strategy, they might have, they are able to come up with this strategy because they might have metacognition. That's the point, right?
In reverse way.
Yes. So
if they have metacognition, then they could come up with different strategies and structure.
Okay, so what you're telling me is people sometimes get so stimulated that they leave some learning, or sometimes they find it difficult to unlearn. Right? What were the other observations you came up with? Their brain development happens. That was your first observation. There are two more.
Yeah, one is that unlearn. They're having this difficulty in unlearning things, and other is that if they are receptive in new experience and observations, they will be having this continuous learning. If they are exposed to new experience and new observation.
Now, how are you generalizing all these observations?
Right. Okay. Now that we see it, we actually did not generalize it. We combined them into, what we called a theory.
So now would you like to generalize them? I completely appreciate you for trying double abstraction. It's not easy to engage in two levels of abstraction. I appreciate you for doing that. But yeah, it's a little challenging because you're already dealing with abstract entities, and now you're and the two not so straightforward abstract entities, right? Psychological abstract entities, and now you want to come up with a theory which generalizes 5 theories around cognition and around psychology. I'll simplify it for everyone, but I first want to hear what your thought is. So what is your theory?
Right. Okay. After the entire discussion that we just had, right? So I realized that earlier we had just combined those observations. But if we think about it, the last observation that we had met, metacognition leads to a successful learning journey. It is in itself covers those 4 points for other points, and it can be considered as a theory.
So how does it cover being open to new experiences and learning?
Right. So if you're not being open, you won't have enough things to think about, right? You're not thinking enough. That's why you're not being open enough.
Okay. So you're saying if you are thinking about thinking, you'll be open to new experiences. Okay. And how does it cover losing out some points because of being carried away by emotions?
Yeah. So basically, when you are thinking at that particular time when you are in the discussion or something, so definitely you will tend to lose out some observations because it will let you think in future. Means when you are sitting and just brainstorming with yourself.
Okay, so would this be metacognition or would this be metacognition and self-awareness? Because some of the things you're talking of are in the cognitive realm, some of them are in the emotional space. Metacognition does not cover the space.
So don't you think that if you have this metacognition, automatically you have means if you are thinking about the things that you are involved and whatever you are working on, so you will automatically get into self-monitored mode and you will try to bring up more strategic things. So
No, Daniel Goneman doesn't agree. He says the cognitive realm is different from the emotive realm, right? So just because you are aware of your thinking doesn't mean that you're aware of your emotions and you've got your emotions sorted. I could be an individual who's very, very logical, who's aware of my logical thinking, but yet I may not be able to understand why I'm feeling whatever emotion, or if my emotion is getting the better of me, I may not be able to realize that. So is your theory then about metacognition alone, or is it about metacognition and emotional intelligence?
Okay, we can say both, but one point that I want to make is when you are overcome by emotions, right? When you are feeling that good, you do not tend to go into that process of thinking about thinking. So yes, I think both involves, because if you're not being emotionally self-aware, if you're not being self-aware of your own emotions, if you're not being able to manage your emotions, then you might not be able to go to that stage of thinking about thinking.
Are you sure about that?
Okay, I'm not sure, but we can make this argument, right? That if you're feeling, sorry,
that argument has no basis, right? You need some sort of evidence to make that argument. Okay, I'll close this round here, and rather I'll move to the second team because you guys have thrown a bouncer at everyone. And next time I suggest that you don't complicate your own life and complicate everyone's life. But yeah, but it's a very good attempt. I think the idea is very interesting. I'll try to simplify it for everyone. So the team has come up with 5 very interesting observations around people, how people think and how people learn. So one of their observations is when you get intellectually stimulated, that you watch some video or you read some book and you're in awe of the book or you're in awe of the speaker. In that process, you miss out on some learnings. That stimulation has blocked you from learning a few things. You get so carried away by the emotion that you miss out a few things, is one of their observation. Other observation of theirs was, what was it? If you're open to new experiences and all, you would probably learn more, is their second observation. What is the other observation you presented?
appreciation of literature of articulations.
If you can appreciate good articulation, you will be able to improve your thinking capabilities. That if someone has expressed something with nice set of words very beautifully, if you can appreciate the choice of words, if you can appreciate how that was actually written, that can lead to, you know, cognitive development, I mean, brain development, right? So that's what they mean. So their theory is basically that if you have emotional intelligence and metacognition, that could lead to better learning behaviors in people. I really appreciate you for picking up such a complex topic, but I think if you're handling such a complex topic and you're communicating that on a public platform, it'll need a lot of preparation to, you know, present it in a simple manner. And also when you use words, I think it's important to use words carefully. Tushar, it somehow felt as though you were just throwing fancy words to make people to sound eloquent. You used deduce incorrectly. You again threw it, reflect, introspect, and all of that. So again, probably a lot of those words went out of context. So I would like to call off this round and move to the next team. Darwin, would you want to go in with your pitch?
So further would be going with the pitch, but I guess like we were asked to like answer the second QFD of the second analysis.
Right.
Yeah. Further.
So, have you ever noticed how some students memorize facts and figures without grasping the bigger picture? How can we strive to foster critical thinking skills that help students grasp the bigger picture? To achieve this, we can implement pedagogical techniques that encourage students to focus on.
Saurav, I think we can't hear him. So can someone else go in? There's a problem with his mic. So can you state the observation? Wait, what is the question for discussion?
So
how do we get kids to see? Okay, let's say how do we get students to see ideas in our classes rather than just content? Yeah. Yes, Saurav, would you want to go in with your pitch?
Yeah. So have you ever noticed how some students memorize facts and figures without grasping the bigger picture? How can we strive to foster critical thinking skills and help students grasp the bigger picture? To achieve this, we can implement pedagogical techniques that encourage students to focus on essential questions and explore the connection between ideas. So one of the techniques can be how can we get students involved to connect the ideas and see how various concepts are related to one another. The second technique can be how can we induce live discussions, live dialogues within classroom, like the one we are having right now. And the third point can be how can we make use of examples, stories that are relevant to students and that they can easily relate with. So this is how.
Okay. So before we go in with questions, how are you connecting with the topics in the questionnaire?
Okay. So there are certain, like for example, like if we talk about the first, which talks about connecting the dots and connecting the ideas, there is one question in the there's one question which discussed about how we can connect like our knowledge from other fields to understand something. We tried to make it simpler. So that was first one. The second one was having live discussion and dialogues in the classroom. Okay, so here we meant by learning from peers. We meant by like learning from by inducing discussions.
Realize that you've just lost everyone.
Sorry.
Darwin. Yeah. Can we please pick some examples and communicate through examples?
Okay. Just. Yeah. So in the question 5 of the questionnaire 2, like we are talking about how can we bring in experiences from other fields or other technologies to understand some problems. So we try to simplify it and put it forward as connecting the dots to understand other concepts. Okay, yeah. And in the another one where we are talking about using examples and stories that are relevant or related to them. So here when we like talking about riddles, so riddles can be one format of it. So we abstract it out and it can be like stories. It can be examples that they can easily imagine. So that's how we were trying to connect.
Okay, so can you summarize in like 3 sentences what your idea is?
Yeah. So our idea is to like first is like how can we get them connect the dots, then how can we have lively discussions and dialogues within classroom, and using relevant examples and stories to that can help them imagine.
Do you realize you're doing the exact opposite of what you're advocating? You're saying there have to be more examples in the class, and this is the exact opposite of what you've done now. So would you mind giving some examples for your 3 recommendations?
Okay. I would, yeah. So I would like to like introduce an idea like to everyone here by giving the like demo for sort of. Okay. So let's say that we all are like, if others can also answer the question, it would be helpful. So if let's say there are 3 people who are traveling in a metro which permits smoking. Okay, there's one person, Rohan, who is a smoke addict. There's another person, Sohan, like who does not smoke, and there's another person, Mahesh. Okay, so just after getting into 5 minutes after the train, Rohan wants to smoke a cigarette. Sohan, who is compatible with Rohan smoking, but Mahesh objects on Rohan smoking a cigarette. Okay, so now the majority is on the Rohan's side. So what do you think Rohan shall do? Like, shall Rohan go ahead and smoke the cigarette because the majority on his side, or
What are you trying to convey, Saurabh?
I'm trying to like put forward an argument, like build an argument if possible.
But what are you trying to convey through this argument?
Okay, I want to like mention how democracy is not just about majoritarianism, but about considering the interest of every individual.
How is that relevant to what you're trying to convey?
I'm trying to convey that through an like this is the example that I'm trying to mention.
Example for what?
For the idea of democracy.
Why is democracy coming in here?
As you asked, like I tried, like we the theory is a lot more abstract, so I'm trying to bring in some example, some story maybe.
I don't see any example here. What are you trying to give an example for?
Okay, for the idea, like instead of like just taking the abstract points, I'm trying to bring those 3 points into the story.
The abstract point.
Sorry,
Which abstract point?
that using examples and stories, connecting the dots, and having lively discussion.
What you're telling me is in your class, if you're talking of democracy, you can give this Sohan and all the train and cigarette example to convey it. Is this what you're trying to say?
I'm yes, in a way.
Okay, then. Okay. So what you're telling is when people are learning something, people can see a lot of examples. That is one point. Then what else are you saying?
Like discussion, live discussion.
Okay.
Okay, so that's why like I was trying to ask the question to encourage. Sorry.
Then.
Yeah, and the third point was like connecting the dots.
What do you mean by connecting the dots?
Okay, so for example, like here as the story like go ahead, like the like in the first the story was like in the first example, the another person, the third person objects just because the person doesn't like smoking. Okay, but as we go ahead, what if there's another scenario where the same person has asthma? Things can get serious. So what can we do in such situation? So now there are interests of the second person which are in contradiction with the majority, the view of majority. So in a democracy, how we can assume, like how we can negotiate. So there are 3 ideas, like interest of one person, the idea of majority, and idea of democracy. So this is what I'm trying to put. Like I may not be able to get it through, but yeah, this is what I'm trying to put.
Okay, it just appears as though you've complicated what is very simple. So what you're telling me is you want the teaching to have a lot of examples. You want the teaching to have live discussion whenever someone learns something, and you want people to connect the dots. Connect the dots as in, you take one idea and you connect that idea to another one. Okay. So team Wise Wanderers, you have some questions around this.
I have a question. So we were talking about how we can connect the dots and teach them and stuff, right? But like you every talks about how do you get students to see those ideas? So how do you get students to connect those dots? As a teacher, you are able to, but how do you get them to connect dots?
Let's not go verbose, right? How do we get people to connect the dots? Simple. Yeah. Saurabh, please go ahead.
Yeah. So here, when we talk about democracy, like as I mentioned, like democracy involves like multiple ideas, right? Democracy is built up of multiple ideas. So here, like I picked up with two specific ones, like majoritarianism, and one other is like considering interest of others and negotiating, right?
I'm not sure why you're trying to complicate what is very simple. You're going into democracy, you're going into a lot of things, just complicating something which is very simple. Can you please answer his question? How are you connecting the dots?
So I'm connecting the dots by showcasing how the idea of how majoritarianism can get in conflict with someone's personal interest.
One example, but his question is a rather more general question, right? Like, how would you, encourage connection of the dots? You're giving your one example. So now, see, the problem is where you could use an example, you're trying to generalize, and where you have to generalize, you're using an example. So how would you develop lateral thinking is the question.
Okay.
Okay, nobody in Team Darwin has an answer for this.
Yeah, may I go ahead? Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so I will show them like connecting dots is a fun thing to do, and that's why I can like encourage them. Like I can give examples. Like my favorite example is like a tank and a motorbike. These two are totally unrelated, but if we combine them, we can like get something like snowmobile. The tank from the chains from the tank and the engines from the motorcycle, we can come up with snowmobile. So this way I can like explain, I can encourage them to like going into deep and like connecting dots, like totally unrelated, but still we can connect dots from.
Okay.
Another way can be like having drills, like for example, we at deep thought we have drills of idea weight. So by that also they may like, learn how to like, connect the dots.
Yeah, Tushar.
Now, I have a follow-up to what Fatin said. So you're making those connections, right? But what if your audience does not have enough exposure to be able to understand those connections?
Which is what is happening now. Or rather, you're having very partial communication. You're articulating it partially, which is, I think, confusing everyone. So yeah, how do you handle this, Saurav? You're trying to make a lot of connections and you got yourself caught in trouble. So how do you deal with such scenarios where when you try to teach students to make connections, they get in trouble because they're trying to make connections?
So here again, the example of that I try to include like how the democracy with the help of a metro. So that may not be relevant to everyone. So I can try to think about more relevant examples. Like that can be one way of.
What if you are teaching thousands of people?
So there can be generalized example that can like be appropriate to some cultures. Like
how do you find those generally?
Some historical stories or mythological stories.
What if you have people from different geographies, different cultures?
Then there can be like pop, like so some pop culture references that are like.
What if there are old people as well?
Okay, like I doubt like having like MBIDs like such an adverse like diverse.
No,
like,
but in open colloquiums at colleges too, institutes too, you have all sort of people, right? There are small children, there are old people, there are people from different places.
question is a little irrelevant here, right? So the question for discussion is when a learner is learning, how do you encourage the learner to see things at the level of an idea rather than see things at the level of just content. So he said you can encourage people to draw lateral connections. So where is this concept of 1,000 people and all coming in now? But anyway, I think the questioning was interesting because he came up with some good suggestions like using cultural references or using pop references to encourage people to connect the dots. And I think, Saurav, I hope that's a very good discovery that rather than using academic references, I think if you I think Fardeen used that motorbike and all of that, which is something people easily relate to.
So, like Tarun just said just now, gets their discovery. So, means I just want to help Saurav that instead of giving them articulation or telling them what to learn, if you will let them discover by questioning and also it would be one approach that they students would be able to connect the dots.
Yeah, definitely.
I think a healthy debate or an argument or a discussion, like, okay, argument, discussion are opposite. So if we have a healthy debate, so through that debate, we can also, discover.
Wait, are we talking of discover? I mean, what is the topic here? What's the question for discussion? The question for discussion is how do you move people away from level of content to level of idea, or how do you help people see things at the level of ideas rather than see things at the level of just content? So would your debate help with that? And if yes, how?
I think when we debate, okay, sorry, I lost.
I have one more question. Means.
No, wait, hold on a sec. So right now, Raman, when you said that debate can be an example, are you operating at the level of content or are you operating at the level of idea?
Why do we debate? We have content, right? And we debate because we want to get some clarity. And I think in a debate, we with the help of arguments, we can achieve that clarity. And with clarity, we can see ideas.
Clarity is at the level of content or clarity is at the level of idea?
Clarity is at the level of ideas.
Okay, so rather than just throwing words or rather than just putting sentences, you're trying to get a deeper understanding of those sentences. And you're saying debate is an instrument for that. And Saurav says teaching people how to connect the dots is a way to do that. Okay. So we'd love to pick up questions from Mr. Shekhar and Mr. Ravi. And so their argument was how you can encourage people to think at the level of concepts or ideas rather than at the level of content. So one suggestion is to do a lot of practice of connecting the dots. Other suggestion they said is to debate the content so that they can move to the level of idea. We'd love to take your questions.
I can go first, right? I mean, I was listening quite an interesting topic to say that when you're taking something from academia that is mostly fact-based or theory and people try to rut it, right? They by heart is what people used to call it in my days. And they don't want to understand the concept and they're just trying to remember it for the purpose of it. So I think there are two things I felt through the learning cycle could help. One is the storytelling. That was possibly one which was missing even through our part of saying, what is it like so that you are able to connect the dots. The way somebody tried to take three people's story, and trying to create a story and create an empathy part of the story and impact that would probably reinforce the learning. And the second part I felt was probably the application. So we learned so many mathematical formulas of a plus b whole square and so on, without even knowing where in life we are going to use it, right? And if you make this more applied way of saying, okay, look, this is how you apply in a project or something at that stage and age, that will probably reinforce the learning. Other than the examples, like, you take an example in the form of story or in the form of applied work, which will probably, bring in a better, facet of learning. Right? That was my observation through the discussion. So, I mean, am I supposed to ask a question, Tarun, or just?
You have some questions to them.
Yeah, see, when I'm talking about, when I'm listening to some part of it, that's what I also felt like, when you're starting off with a story, in story, there is always a structure, right? You're creating a plot, you're narrating the plot, and there's a conclusion, there's a conflict, right? So somehow, I think, when the story had meat to it, it didn't have the head and leg, and that's where I lost a little bit,
If you have a question, I'll appreciate if you have a question. Because look, I can tell you most of the corporates would not understand what these guys are saying. They've handled a very challenging topic. So I'm not trying to judge them for their articulation because I know best of people would struggle with the articulation. But if you have a question, I'm happy to field it against them.
So the question is, in general, when you talked about example, right? So do you, align with what I was suggesting, example that is in the form of story, or do you example with an applied concept, right? That would, I was trying to probably bring in that in the form of question.
Okay, so Saura, if I can put the question this way, do you agree with the idea of giving your example in the form of a story for people?
Yeah, I like
to connect the dots, right?
yeah. As you also mentioned, like I discovered that how using like example from like culture or like more like which people can relate to rather than using an example from academia and building a story around it. Yeah, obviously it would have helped. I already thought about it, but I could not. I could think about story, but I could not add it.
What is your objective? Your objective is to make people distinguish between seeing it as content and seeing it as a idea. So if they're seeing applications, they're still seeing it as content. It's not at the level of synthesis. As per Bloom's taxonomy, it's still in factual layer only. Applications are still in factual layer. Your idea is to get them to level 4, 5, 6 of Bloom's taxonomy. That is to the concept layer.
Okay, but still, if
how do you get them to level 4, 5, 6?
See, if in story also, if I can put forward those dilemmas and the right questions, would that not help?
Okay, so it's not story in itself, but it's a story as a context setter, and then there's a question.
Yeah, we can, that way we can put.
Okay, kind of like the mythology also, where people ask you questions with dilemma. Okay. So Mr. Shekhar, his response is, you give a story, but through the story, you put people in a dilemma and ask people to come up with an answer. That is how he would want the pedagogy to be.
I think he didn't answer the second part of it, which was more about applied thought. While you're taking an example, would you put them through a practical scenario where they would, okay, what would you do in this scenario? Take this example to really go through that churn of thought and learn through it.
I guess when I said putting them in dilemma, like I meant that.
He actually, so Mr. Shekhar, I think the challenge is he's actually articulated it, maybe with a little more attention, you'll get that. So he said that he'll put people in he'll narrate a story. In that story, there'll be a dilemma. So it's not, Mr. Shekhar, I think contrary to the popular perception, application is still a very lower level of learning. If you were to study pedagogy, as per Bloom's taxonomy, application is level 3. So synthesis is actually level 6, which is a higher level. So he does not want to put people through application. What he wants is he wants to put people in a dilemma. Like you just put him in a dilemma. In this situation, what will you do? So he wants to put people in a dilemma and let people figure it out. That is his suggestion.
Thank you.
Well, that was a very interesting conflict of ideas. And an interesting conflict usually leads to synthesis. So that's nice. Mr. Ravi, if you have some questions.
Yeah, so what I heard is two distinctly thoughts or ideas, two different ideas. One is connecting dots and other is like debates. Okay, these are two distinctly I could make out. Okay, so again, maybe I'm thinking in terms of application, but when you try to apply it, will you apply it sequentially or like randomly?
How would you do these two ideas, debate and connecting the dots? Randomly or one after the other?
Would Ferdinand Raman like to take that?
I think when we when someone gives us questions where we have to connect the dots or to figure out something, there in such scenarios we can use that connecting the dots, and like other one, like anyone of you like to go?
So Mr. Ravi, what he said is, if people are asking you to figure something new, people are asking you to figure out something new, there you can use connecting the dots, because you can connect the dots with something else that you already know, and you can figure out something new.
Okay.
Or like another like thing I was thinking, like in classroom we try to make the environment very much formal, like, but while we are like having conversation, we don't try to. What if we do this like conversation also, like where we are?
Looks like we're going on tangents. Can we answer Mr. Ravi's question? I understand you have a nice idea, but can we answer his question, which is, do you do it one after the other, or do you do it at random?
Yeah. So sometimes like at random, sometimes we are like the way we do in informal conversation, just with more focus on the particular topic. So if we can bring like focus within like some, so that they don't feel very much under pressure to respond.
I would like to say on this. I think connecting the dots can be done first, and after that we can debate on the concept that like one is getting.
Okay, and why?
I think when someone give us a question, right, in around a story, like he give us a story, like he give us a context, and with from that question, we are learning a new concept, right? But that's just an example, right? That story is just an example, and in debates we can like around that concept, we can have different perspective, and we can get more clarity at deeper level.
So Mr. Ravi is suggesting that lateral thinking can come in first for the clarity, because you make a lot of connections, make more perspectives, and then bring all of that into a debate.
What if I say through a debate you get more dots and more dots to connect?
What if? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Raman, go ahead.
Like I didn't get the question.
What if debates give you more dots to connect? What if debates help you learn how to connect the dots?
I think when like I have no idea, like a debate can give us more dots. I have seen that when we debate, we go to, like, we are narrowing down, right, and we are reaching to a particular or a fundamental. I think it won't give us more dots.
He's saying that when we debate, you go down to one fine thing and you're discussing that one fine thing. So you may not have that much divergence, is what he's saying.
Okay, that's one point. I understood that point, but like for a new idea, like because you understand, I don't know if I'm saying more corporate language, but you understand more risk, more ideas, more scenarios through a debate, and you have more dots to minimize risk.
Are you intending a debate or a brainstorming session?
I relate a debate as a brainstorming session here.
But debate is different, no? Debate is more like you take one issue and you try to resolve that issue.
Mm-hmm.
In a brainstorming session, you're probably having the divergence where they throw more things.
Yeah, in the context, okay. So in this context, what is presented, what was the idea? Whether it was a brainstorming session or was it debate?
Debate.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They're saying you debate so that whatever you're telling, you critically evaluate it. Like right now, we are critically evaluating this piece, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So in this scenario, like whatever debate to brainstorm, I got the answer. Yeah. Okay.
And Saurav had a different answer to your question. His answer was you can do both. You can have a combination. But sometimes when things are going out of control, you can have only one at once to bring the focus. That was his answer.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah. In the interest of time, we'd like to conclude this dialogue. We'd love to have all of your thoughts at the end of this dialogue, the jury. So, Mr. Shekhar, Mr. Ravi, Dr. Aryasri.
Okay, I'll pitch in. You are checking with us, right, Tarun? The jury first? Yeah, okay. So first team, Wanderers, a complex thought. Second team, it was simple thought, so discussion led to more time. But I think we have not given enough time to the first team because the thought was a little bit complex. So yeah, that's like, I don't know, I'm what I'm supposed to give a conclusion or so, but I think the second topic was simple, so we discussed more, but we could have little bit done on the first topic as well.
Sure. Thank you for your remarks, Mr. Ravi.
I'll go in next, Tarun. It was a very interesting topic, right? Well, as we try to call it complex and simplified. What my observation was, wherever there was a question that is coming out, rather than being assertive, people try to dodge or get onto a sideline. I mean, if they had a pointed perspective, they could have put in assertively. And that is where I felt like, they had a point, but they could not come with the point with that level of assertion, right? So maybe they were a bit conscious of talking to a large audience that's observing from outside, or what was causing that hesitance. I feel that they had the answer, but they could not come out with a similar assertion or articulation.
Could you give one example of that, Mr. Sheikh?
So let's say the first group, when they called out saying, literary appreciation, metacognition, and so on, it was a very interesting topic, right? I was very intrigued, when they called out Kabir ke dohe, there are so many, things that we'll even learn and remember today and apply in real life.
What is it that they dodged?
Sorry?
What is it that they dodged?
So when I think somebody asked them a question, they were not very confident in articulating with assertion, right? So immediately they said, no, this is the question. The question was, I think, are you combining two different theories, or is this your observation, right? And somewhere I was going to say this is my experience, right? I mean, I was just playing out myself being one of the participants. So while you're talking about all these different ways of learning and how they can help you into overall learning, while you guys might call it an observation or a theory, but at least from my perspective, it was an experience. If I were there, I would have spoken with a bit more assertion that it is something that we feel or we have observed. Right?
Here we teach people rigor. We teach people to use the words very carefully.
Okay.
So the questionnaire, they already had a careful definition of what's a theory and what's an observation.
Okay.
So I think the reason why they were finding it difficult is it is not your usual high school debates where people are picking up traditional topics, right? So it was a philosophically nuanced thing, and suddenly they were put in a spot and they were asked, wait, did you really generalize or did you combine them? So it took them some thinking to figure out that they had actually, I think it took them about 5 minutes to realize that they actually combined.
But on the face of it, when observing their facial expression, it did seem like, Shagun, or I forgot the other guy's name, they did seem to have an answer, right? It was just they were perplexed for the moment like a deer in a headlight.
Sir, do you want to come in? I mean, did you have an answer or?
I was under the impression that unless you're trying to put it up on the screen. but I felt like they had the answer and they were just like, deer in a headlight, like suddenly they were into the limelight. So how do I respond back to this? That's how I felt as an observer.
Tushar, would you want to comment?
Right. I think, first of all, the generalization thing, right? Like we had combined those observations and not generalized it. So that was the thing that we had not realized it until the discussion that we had. So throughout the discussion, we were in the thought process plus that emotions of, being in the hot seat plus what we had written. So I think it was a combination of everything. And we did seem to have the answers as well, but not at the same time. So it was the, thinking process going on.
They were still organizing their thoughts as to, they were not decided as to, is it a combination or is it a generalization? And Saurav was pretty convinced that they just combined. And he was just waiting for them to commit a stance and attack next. So they were thinking very carefully because they knew he was already waiting for his next question.
Then the other group, I think it was a very interesting, simple concept of people go after facts and figures without learning the concept or without really understanding the rationale behind that. And even there, I felt like they were able to articulate with some examples, which were pertinent to real life. But when you start off with the story, I didn't feel like there was a closure to that to get to it. And that so overall, it was an interesting concept, a lot of learning for myself to be part of such a think tank and getting through a debate of concept that I emotionally attached to, but practically have not been through a learning like you guys have. And that's where I felt like the closing part is something they could have done in the assertion, right? That's how I was expecting as an observer.
Absolutely. We respect that. And thanks a lot for putting your thoughts, Mr. Shekhar. And I think this helps us. Dr. Aryasri, if you'd like to go in with thoughts.
Very difficult for me to understand every word young boys could speak. It's very difficult. And you're telling them examples have to be given every time. And they're trying to give some examples also. But the questions were intriguing. The effort, I appreciate the effort. The topics that were given, I don't know how much time they have given for preparation, but the effort they have made is very, very good. The engaging oneself in this type of high level concepts itself is very, very difficult. Answering these questions, I really appreciate this effort. And the learning part of it, well, they could have definitely used more examples. They could have definitely used some analogies, and they could have definitely. But communication delivery was very, very effective. Was very good. But I'm very, very happy that I could listen to these people and they try to understand. They try to go into thoughts. They try to present themselves very confidently, and I think I enjoyed this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tarun.
And kudos to everyone for the effort they've put in for this, right? I mean, definitely, some of us, we are strangers to the concept and the effort that you guys have put in, but I could really see a lot of hard work has gone behind getting ready for this evening. So I appreciate and kudos to all of you.
And I also just want to add for this young team, I think at this age, you're talking about subjects like probably we are groping to look for like what is. So I think kudos to you all. You are exposed to such, I would not say complex. These are fairly simple, but we are not exposed to that at early ages or even middle ages. So you are lucky to have such thought process at a very early age, and a lot to go for you guys. Appreciate you all, really.
Thank you, Mr. Ravi. Thank you, Mr. Shekhar. Thank you, Dr. Aryasri. This brings us to the conclusion of the program.